Shelton has already homered tonight. And that one down the left field line, curving, and it is gone. A walk-off win for Kobe Shelton as that one stays just inside the foul pole. Second homer of the day. The first time he's had 3 hits as a Gator, none bigger than that one. And we are going home.
Welcome back, College Baseball Central fans. This is the Weekend Rotation, the Saturday morning show where we talk about all things college baseball. We know a lot of you guys are watching brackets and basketball, so come catch up with all the college baseball that's gone on Friday and even some Thursday games with us. Today I'm joined by Jake McKeever. How are we doing, Jake?
Feeling pretty good. Got to see probably one of the best pitching performances on the year last night with DBU and Sam Houston. So the vibes are pretty high right now.
High vibes, high vibes. Getting to watch some good college baseball. Monty, I know you got to watch a lot of games in. Monty Taylor, how we doing, man?
We're doing well, and both dogs are in the shot. So apologies if they interrupt anything. They are just excited for college baseball as I am, and we got to watch a lot of games yesterday. Since I was not traveling for the first time this year, so that was it's pretty awesome to be able to watch all the games yesterday.
As we know, Corgis are baseball fans, so we're good with this. We love this look here. So we're going to get into it, guys. We always go into our games that happened on Friday and Thursday first. We talk about some games that we highlighted. Duke 3, North Carolina State 4. Monty, this was a big win for NC State. They seem to be struggling, going the wrong direction. They dropped out of most top 25 polls. A home win at Duke is just what the doctor ordered.
Yeah, and Sam Highfill was absolutely fantastic. I think he's really got to be the story of the game. Him and Jacob Duden really making sure they get that win because it was close the whole way. I mean, Owen Proch came in for Duke. They tied the game. It was 3-3. You know, and for NC State to still find ways to get another run across and win and on a Santucci start is pretty big. So huge win for NC State, and I think this is pretty indicative of the ACC. As good as Duke is, the ACC is going to beat themselves around. You know, regardless of who the top teams are, I think you're going to see a lot of this where, you know, any team is capable of dropping a series to anybody.
Yeah, and I've said it before that the ACC and the SEC are both gauntlets this year, and road games are hard for anybody going on the road in either one of these conferences. Is just not easy. It's not easy to win on the road in ACC play this year or SEC play. It's just tough. Doesn't matter who you're playing. These teams want to win. They're good at baseball. There's a lot of good baseball in both these conferences. Speaking of a road win, Jake, TCU 1, Oklahoma State 0. Big start for TCU. They had to get something going. It feels like the loser of this series almost is out of.
Yeah, I mean, it does kind of
contention.
feel like an elimination game here in week 3. I guess TCU kind of found the solution to their bullpen woes that they've been having. Just have your starter throw a complete game. Peyton Tolley just was at a masterful pitching performance. 15 Ks. I will say the one run that TCU scored that really kind of worries me, it came on a walk, error on a bunt, and then a sac fly. So the hitting kind of really was non-existent. Peyton Chattier did have one of the team's 2 hits, so look for him he was one that I really highlighted in the weekly show to kind of break out. And again, I think the thing that was most impressive for me was the faith that Sarlos had in Tolley. That 6th inning as Tolley kind of gets his pitch count up a little bit, gets a little traffic on the bases. I mean, he just runs rough shot right through the Oklahoma State top of the order, which again, I think that's where the story of the game was that one right there, because the bottom of the order really didn't provide a ton of resistance. 7, 8, 9 went 0 for 8 with 8 Ks for Oklahoma State. Some positives for Oklahoma State because there really weren't a lot. Nolan Schubar got to pinch hit there late at the end, so hopefully that means that he's kind of getting back on the right track. But again, I mean, this one felt like a regional type of game. Like every pitch, you seem to just be on the edge of your seat.
Yeah, I think it mattered a lot for both these teams just realizing what this is going to say for the rest of their Big 12 seasons. Both teams have not started off where they wanted to. TCU was ranked number 1 in some polls at one point, and they have dropped all the way down to almost out of some polls. So this is big for TCU to get a road win to get that weekend started for them. Washington 1, Oregon State 3. big start for Oregon State at home there. They had to get that going. It was a miserable day in Corvallis. It was pouring rain. It was windy. It was gross outside. So to go out there and grind that win, Oregon State only ended up with 3 hits. Washington only had 5 hits. But, Oregon State, Travis Bazzana started off with a bomb, and the Beavers never really looked back. And Aiden May, Friday night starter, was back out there. He threw 41 pitches and got through 2 2/3. Good to see him back out there, but he struck out 4 in his performance. Jake, this was a big game for Oregon State, especially with Washington coming up there and Washington playing a really good series against Texas to get that win at home.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a very impressive win for Oregon State. I think because any time that you have a season low in runs and you still kind of grind out a win, I think that shows a lot about your ball coming. It's going to give you a lot of confidence going forward. Aiden May was obviously the headliner as he was making his first start in nearly a month as he kind of had the injury back in Arkansas. He had 5 Ks, went 2 1/3. I
But
think that was kind of more of a pitch count issue, not necessarily a control issue. Um,
yeah,
I do want to call out the Arkansas fans that said that I have Bazzana so high and that he can't hit elite pitching. Like, he's sitting close to 500. Like, I'm sure that there's elite pitchers that are sprinkled in there. But again, season low in runs, and you're still coming away with a win. Miserable, miserable day up in Corvallis. I think that's what really impressed me the most is that when you have these kind of off days, that this is where you make your money and kind of just add it to the win total and get rolling.
to throw into that, where Arkansas fans said he is hitting 421 against pitches thrown over 93 miles an hour, and he has 8 home runs off them. So don't say he's not hitting elite pitching. He can hit elite pitching just fine. He just doesn't see it every single weekend. But he's already got his 11th home run. Big for Trav, and good to see Aiden May back out there. Like you said, 5. I thought he had 5 strikeouts there for him. It was a pitch count thing. Dorman said, "Hey, he's throwing between 40 and 50." He got up to 41 before he got to the next batter, and they're like, "That's it. We're shutting him down. We're gonna wait for next weekend." So good to see him back out there though, and then it really just sets up the weekend rotation for the rest of the time here against Washington. Vatek doubleheader against BC. Monty 9-6, 4-3, big wins on the road for Vatek. They've started off 7-1 now in ACC play. This
Yeah.
weekend rotation has been exactly what we asked them to be. We said we need to see more better starts from them. They've gotten it.
Yeah, and the lineup is exactly as advertised. The lineup's good, but the pitching is really. We knew if they got any sort of pitching, they would be dangerous, and sure enough, they are. They're getting really good starts out of a freshman and Brett Renfro on Friday nights. He didn't have the best one against BC, but it was a back and forth affair that they eventually, took care of business at the end of the game, and then. Same thing on in the doubleheader, the second game of the doubleheader, they were able to bring in former East Carolina Pirate Jordan Little. He had 2 saves on the day at the back end of the bullpen, which is hard to do because there's not always doubleheaders. So Virginia Tech, very, very, very impressive to me. Obviously, you've got the lineup clicking with Carson DiMartini. He had something like 5 home runs in like 3 games last week. Might have been even more than that. I can't remember. He was reigning ACC Player of the Week. So you got to really be happy if you're a Virginia Tech fan. We should have them ranked. We didn't have them ranked this past week. We should definitely have them ranked this week. So just big for the Hokies.
Yeah, they will certainly be in my top 25. This team just continues to impress. I said I wanted to see 1 more week, see a road series. There it is. I mean, this team continues to impress, and the starting pitching was the big question mark to start the season. They've been electric. They've been exactly what they needed to be for Virginia Tech to be good. If they would have had this pitching a year ago, they might have been a regional host.
Yeah, it wasn't just starting pitching. It was any pitching. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, can we collect 27 outs, and they've done it this year. Louisville Thursday game and Friday game here against Wake. 1-5 and then 7-16. They didn't really perform here. Big wins for Wake, Jake. But if you're a Louisville fan, you got to be just scratching your head and trying to figure out what's going on here.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a Louisville fan, I think you kind of need to lower your expectations a little bit with this team. It's not the one that they had at this time last year that flopped. I mean, Chase Burns just went out and absolutely shoved. He did Chase Burns things. 7 innings, 3 hits, 12 Ks. Only gave up the 1 run, which again was a home run. Zion Rose for Louisville hit it, and it wasn't a bad pitch at all. And it came away actually very, very impressed with Zion Rose's approach when I watched these games. He's just a freshman, but he seems to have just a professional approach. He can really hit a pitch just about anywhere out of the ballpark. So I think that if you're a Louisville fan, you need to kind of hang your hat on somebody like Gavin Rose, who is going to be the future of this one. But again, this Wake team is just kind of waking up a little bit. I know everybody's kind of been low on them. I think that this is kind of where they get back into it. And again, the bullpen behind Burns, and granted they only had to get 6 outs there, but I think that was what really impressed me a little bit, is that if they can figure out those bullpen issues, this is going to be the Wake team that everybody kind of expected it to be.
Yeah, and Chase Burns has been great. He has really been a rock for them in that Saturday rotation there for them. But Monty, the offense is starting to come back alive, and we know that Wake's going to get Nick Kurtz back at some point this season, which is going to help that offense. When you look at this overall, Wake fans got to be a little happy that they're starting to win some games at home and taking care of business in ACC play. They really had to get going.
The offense hasn't really been a problem. I know we addressed it a little bit in non-conference, but in conference against the better pitching, they've been great, and that's with Nick Kurtz struggling before his injury, and obviously now he's out, but Jack Winay continues to, he was in the lineup in left field when Nick Kurtz was on the field, but now he's at first base for Nick Kurtz, and he's not missing a beat. He's been electric as a sophomore. I don't think enough people are talking about his performance. Adam Tellier at third base, a transfer from Ball State, has been electric at the top of the lineup. So they're getting stuff in the lineup. An encouraging sign with that you might not notice if you're looking at the box score on Thursday night is Josh Hartle. He did give up a lot of runs again, but most of them were there were defensive plays that if they had been made, that line's a lot better. And he was able to go 6 innings, I believe, and retire the last couple of, cruise through the last couple of innings. So that's got to be promising that it looks like he's got something to build on for his next start. And the back end of the bullpen, you've got, it looks like 2 guys who you can rely on right now, and Zach Johnston, who Jake was talking about in that Chase Burns start. I believe he was the one that got the last 2 innings of that game.
He was 4 outs, 2 Ks, Monty.
Yeah, and Will Ray is the other one. So they're hoping to get Crawford Wade and Cole Rowland back from injury sometime soon, and that should also help their bullpen issues. But yeah, the fact they got Chase Burns going every Saturday is going to give them a chance to win. If you're wondering what that sound is, that is the dogs doing zoomies.
I thought you had like some maracas going over there.
No, that's their nails on the hardwood floor. The younger one was just going back and forth the whole
time. Yeah, I'm excited for this Wake team. I think that, after some stumbles early, I think that they're going to get going. I have no worries about this Wake team other than I wanted to see more pitching. And now that you're talking about this, Hartle coming out, he had a rough as far as runs go, but he didn't look rough. He looked like he's polished. He looked like he's feeling better, looked like he's beating up the zone a lot more, and that's what they need from him to go out there on Friday nights. Florida State at Clemson, postponed. Weather got this one so far, but this is a big series, Monty. Big for both teams here. Florida State still is the only undefeated team in Division I baseball currently. Clemson looking to make a stand here at home.
Yeah, what I'm looking for here is obviously Florida State has faced Florida, but that was a midweek. Other than that, their biggest competition has been Notre Dame. So what I'm looking for from Florida State today, they've got the doubleheader today. It's going to be Cam Leiter and Jamie Arnold. I would imagine they would keep the top 2 guys pitching today. I want to see how those guys do against an elite lineup like Clemson, because they haven't really had to face an elite lineup. The Florida game was a midweek, so the weekend starters did not face a Florida lineup. So I'm really curious to see how those 2 guys pitch against Clemson. And that will tell me a lot more about Florida State, I think, in terms of whether they are a top 10 team or not. If those 2 guys shove, regardless of the outcome of the particular game, if those 2 guys impress, I think we could be talking about a top 10 Florida State baseball team. Jamie Arnold has arguably been the best pitcher in the ACC this year. He's up there with a lot of Chase Burns' stuff. The only difference is Chase Burns has faced elite lineups like Virginia and Duke already in back-to-back, and then dominated those 2 lineups. So really,
Monty, does it worry you that Florida State is leaving Florida for the first time this year? I know Florida, and we'll talk about it Miami later.
They have left Florida.
Where'd they go?
They played in Greenville, South Carolina.
Okay, never mind then. I was going to say, because that's the one thing that really kind of worries me is about all these Florida schools is that they never seem to go anywhere and just always flop that first
What?
series in conference play.
Yeah, it doesn't worry me as much too because Clemson, South Carolina. It's not like the Miami situation where they're going to South Bend. So
Yeah, you're
that
not
also
changing
that
weather.
also yeah that also plays a bigger factor. So
It's
Well,
cold in Notre Dame.
yeah,
Exactly.
so
Yeah.
so yeah, I'm not too worried about that. I'm just really excited to see how this Florida State pitching staff, the weekend rotation in particular, faces a little bit more elite lineup. Not that Notre Dame, their lineup is decent, but it's not to the level of Clemson. You don't have a Cam Canarella in that lineup
Yeah.
at
Tito
Notre Dame.
Flores, money.
Tito Flores is
Listen,
not Cam Canarella.
Jake, come on.
David, David, yeah, we'll talk about Notre Dame in a little bit, but they have a good lineup. It's just not Clemson good.
it's not Clemson. Let's be real. That Clemson lineup is dangerous, and it can
It's a
take down
top
a lot
10
of
team
teams.
for a
It's a
reason.
very good team, and
Yes.
a lot of it's based on that offense. 2 top 10 teams. Florida 1, LSU 6. Good win at home for LSU, and they really just looked the part there on that Friday night there, Jake.
Yeah, I mean, the LSU really did impress. And like I kind of mentioned with Florida State, this was Florida's first time leaving the state, first time really not sleeping in their own beds. So I'm interested to see kind of how they react again today because it just seemed like a game that you blink and you miss it. I mean, Luke Holman was dicing up Florida every step of the way. He was painting it inside, he was painting it outside, and a lot of them really didn't have a chance to have good at bats. And again, I think that was the most impressive part for me. Griffin Herring out of the bullpen. I think him and Ockenhausen are kind of the two that Jay's starting to lean on a little bit more. He had his longest outing of the year, going 3 innings. Didn't walk anybody, but I think that his command issues are still kind of there a little bit. You like to see him kind of attack hitters, get guys out maybe a little bit earlier to kind of get the pitch count down. But again, that's just kind of picking and choosing with him, as again, the LSU bullpen issues have kind of been their whole reason. I said the big key to the series was going to be how LSU had an offense outside of Tommy White. Last week, it felt like it was the Tommy White show and no one really outside of it. Well, he went 0 for 3 and LSU still scored 6 runs. Travinsky stepped up really, really big. Ethan Frey had 2 hits. I'll touch on him in a second. But I think that the obscure thing for me is LSU is now 3-0 when Tommy White goes 0 for 3. That the best hitter, who's their entire offense on most days, when he goes 0 for 3, LSU always seems to win. But Ethan Frey starting at the DH, he really, really impressed me. He's 6'6", but he's got a very short, tight, quiet, compact swing that I think really translate. You almost kind of forget that he's 6'6" with the way that he swings the bat. I'm excited to kind of see him kind of grow as a hitter in this LSU lineup. And again, if they can do it again today, if they can keep Neely out for Florida, I think that that's really going to be the key because outside of Neely for Florida, I think that they really don't have a very good bullpen.
Yeah, and Florida's woes continue on the offensive side, right? Like we just cannot figure out how this offense can't produce. But great job by LSU's pitching staff. Griff Herring, I had big things to say about him in the preseason. I do think that he could be an elite arm out of the bullpen if he can find his stuff is really, really good. He's just got to find the zone there. Monty, I know that you got to watch a little bit of this one, and you were pretty impressed by this LSU defense and seeing that pitching staff.
Yeah, I know we talked about it before the show. There was a couple of plays at third base made by Tommy White, and I can see it just in that small sample size the improvement he's made over last season, and he looks a lot. I didn't even realize that was him at third base because I thought it looked like he'd lost a little bit of. He's a little bit slimmer over there, and I was like, he's DHing, right? No, that's him at third base. So a really promising development for LSU as a whole, and him personally, considering his future draft stock.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was impressed with Holman pitching really, really well. Really not giving Florida an opportunity to do anything, and now Florida's in a hole. If they want to win this series, they got to win both these next two.
Yep, it puts them in a spot there. And, LSU at home is tough. Alex Box Stadium is always great for the home crowd. And they really have just taken care of business at home in SEC play recently. So Florida being there on the road, it's just not a very good recipe for them to try to figure out their offensive issues that they've been having. Miami 2, Notre Dame 6. Monty, I'm going to let you start with this one because this is a big road series for Miami, especially if they want to be among those elite ACC teams like they played so far this season. But this is not the best loss, but it's also on the road at Notre Dame. It's tough.
I have said it all along that Miami is not a very good baseball team.
Yeah.
And yet we ranked them in our top 25 this past week. but they did not look good yesterday. Gage Zeal did okay, but then Notre Dame was just consistently getting some little hits and making some magic happen. But yeah, Miami, I think their wins against UNC and Virginia says a little bit more about those two. Virginia easily could have swept that series, as Miami also could have swept it if Virginia gave it away. But they were particularly bad that weekend. I don't think UNC is as good offensively, so they were able to get shut down by Miami. So I think it says more about those two teams playing at Miami and the magic of Mark Light Stadium than it does about Miami actually being a good top 25 team. So I think I chose this as my upset pick, Notre Dame over Miami, because Miami's heading to South Bend, leaving Florida for the first time, and I think they were gonna get exposed a little bit.
Yeah, and it's bad weather. It's tough to get that offense going in the bad weather when you haven't played in it all year, and then you're asking them to go on the road and win a series at Notre Dame. It's just tough. Yes, it's cold in Notre Dame.
I like that he keeps bringing it up.
Jake, did you have anything you want to add about that Miami loss at Notre Dame? I mean, Notre Dame just feels like a middle of the pack ACC team to lower into the pack.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I really took away from this game is I don't know if they trust their bullpen, because I think Zeal really kind of in those middle innings really kind of compounded a lot of hard contact, and I thought that they were going to yank him around that 5 or 6 mark. He kind of kept going out there, kept going out there, kept going out there. I think that the one that really kind of stood out to me is Sear and Cuvée both went 1 for 8. And then Lucas Costello's at bats. He's under 200 now, and he really hasn't got a hit in ACC play in a while. And I think Miami's going to have to really lean on those 3 guys going forward. I think that that's really going to be the story of their season, is kind of how those 3 guys kind of play. But again, I think Jack Penny for Notre Dame, he's the one that really stood out for me, just to kind of give Notre Dame some props, as it seems like we've just been dumping on Miami. He went 2 for 4 with the triple. His average is, again, around that 220 mark. If he can kind of get going, I think Notre Dame can kind of play spoiler with a ton of these. Yet there is no bullpen.
There it is. No bullpen.
Do you really want a Zeal going and getting rocked there the 3rd time through the order? So that's the point that really worries me.
I think it's they're saying Zeal a tired Zeal's better than a fresh arm out of the bullpen. Nick Robert, I think, is the only guy you can really rely on out of that bullpen. He's a freshman, so you don't want to overwork him too much either.
Yeah, you want him to be fresh at the end of the season also, so you can't just throw him out there every single time there's an issue and anytime there's problems.
You want him to be a freshman?
Yes, I want him to be a freshman.
I'm leaving.
That's the end of the podcast. Thanks for joining us, folks.
Jake ruined it again.
So I'm going to talk a little bit here. Bama and Georgia postponed. We are excited about this series. I know AJ, our other guy, AJ Sessions, is sick today, so we're rooting for him. He did not make his upset pick of the week of not being sick again. But we both have this game as a big one. And I have Georgia as my upset pick because I believe Georgia at home can take it to Bama. They're a doubleheader today. I'm excited to see this offense. I'm not 100% sold on Alabama, but man, they just keep going out there and winning. But we also know how hard it is to win road series in the SEC. Another road series that got postponed today, Vandy at South Carolina. This is a big one here. Jake, I know you wanted to add a little bit about this one, but Vandy at South Carolina, this is South Carolina has to start finding some wins. Mother Nature improved to 18-3.
What are the 3 losses? I need to know what the losses were.
All in Oregon. They're all in Oregon.
But no, they're not doing the Cambria College Classic anymore. So Mother Nature is undefeated this year.
Yeah. But Jake, this Vandy series at South Carolina, big for both programs. South Carolina's going to find something, and Vandy feels like they still have more to prove.
Yeah, I think Vandy is still kind of one of the more slept-on teams. They have one of the deeper lineups with R.J. Austin, and I know that kind of sus video of him went around, I guess, on the rain delay. But I've always been really impressed with this Vandy team. They take a very, very professional approach. And then for South Carolina, we've seen what they're going to do on the road with Clemson and at Ole Miss. They really kind of need to start stacking up and winning some of these home series, stealing one at home against a Vandy team that's just in fuego right now. I think for South Carolina, they need to create their own urgency. It seems like at the plate, they're always kind of waiting around, waiting for that walk to kind of get them going before they can really kickstart. I think that they really need to start an ambush tactic there for them. I mean, Gavis Cassius, Cole Messina, Ethan Petrie. I think that those 3 guys are, South Carolina fans would like them to be hitting about 10, 20 batting average is higher. I think that if they can kind of start getting that rolling, not waiting around looking for a walk, I think South Carolina is going to be really in business there because, again, waiting around for a walk didn't work last week against Ole Miss.
No, and you're talking about a very good Vandy weekend rotation that's coming in there, and they're going to throw a lot of strikes. And it seemed like South Carolina took a lot of fastballs for strikes in that last weekend series. So they got to figure it out. They got to attack the baseball and get after it. They have too many good hitters to not be putting up runs. Utah 7, at Cal 3. Cal's a team that's been flirting with the top 25. I know I did not have them in my top 25 this week. I've been impressed by the way Utah's been playing ball. Jake, they just keep playing small ball and it translates. They're able to pitch, they're able to play defense, and then they go out there and they get it, manufacture some runs. 7-3 on the road. Any road game that you win is good in any conference. But when you're Utah and you're going out there and winning road games, that's even better.
I think Utah is Helen Keller levels of quiet with how good they are kind of being out there on the West Coast. They beat a very good Cal team. They really kind of took it to Oregon, as I see Monty's face there. They're 15-6. They started out 1-2 on the season. That's behind them. Oregon State's behind them. Now this Cal series is kind of starting to get behind them. I think we really need to start having a deep, deep conversation about Utah kind of being in that upper class and making the tournament down there at the Pac because, again, they do a lot of things right. They have a ton of guys who have gap-to-gap power. They almost remind me of kind of like a Kentucky where they love to kind of create havoc, steal extra bases when it's given to them. I think that that's going to be the really impressive part. And Mark, I did want to play a little bit of devil's advocate here because we
Yep.
know what Utah was going to be coming into the season. Do you think that this tells us more that Utah is overperforming or that the pack depth is not what we thought it was going to be?
I'm more on the fact that I believe that the pack depth is not where we expect it to be. And we'll talk a little bit more, or I'll talk a little bit more about this UCLA and USC series and games like that where we thought, okay, these teams have stepped up. USC's better, Arizona State's better, and now it's been like kind of the opposite. Utah's stepped up, Wazoo's stepped up. Some teams that we expected to be near the bottom of the pack have really stepped up and been really good. So it tells me that there's not as much elite arms, and we kind of knew that coming in, but the lineups have not produced for these better teams. So I still like Cal. I still think that they have some room to move around here in the Pac-12. I still think that they're going to be in the top 4, but they're not proving me anything when they lose games at home against a team like Utah where they need to win those games. And don't forget, Utah took a game from Oregon State already, so that's big for their Pac-12 standings.
And they
They're
beat
already in the win
Washington. They
column.
beat Washington State too in a series.
Yeah,
So
they took 2 out of 3. They already have
they're,
they're
they're,
4
they're
and 3
quietly
in
doing all the
Pac-12
right
play.
things. So
Yep. And they play good ball. What they do is they just go out there, they play small ball, they produce runs, and they pitch and they play defense. And that's what they've asked. They brought in a ton of
they're just the
transfers.
epitome of a pack team. You can't watch them on TV. You just check the box scores, and they're doing everything right. It seems.
Speaking of box scores, Tennessee 15, Ole Miss 3. Ole Miss visiting Tennessee here for a road series. We know how hard again it is to win road series. AJ Causey is now 5-0. Moore hit 2 bombs. They had 5 home runs in the game. They were up 10-0 in the fourth. It never felt at any point that Ole Miss was in this game, Jake.
No, I mean it really didn't. I think that the one thing that was really the most impressive part, as you mentioned, the 5 home runs, is that Billy Amick went 0 for 3. So at the end of the day, their quote unquote best hitter had an off night and they score 15 runs. Christian Moore, I think, continues to impress me. He had 2 home runs. I know he hits in that leadoff spot, but I think he kind of has an approach more like a 3-4-5 middle of the order guy. He'd much rather kind of drive a ball than leg out a bunt or anything like that. And then Kavaris Tears, I know that he was on kind of one of my breakout sophomore lists when I was going through the season. He's been on an absolute tear. He's hitting 394 with 7 home runs. And for reference, Blake Burke has 8 home runs. And again, as Tennessee can kind of stay ahead of their bullpen, again, which is always kind of a key here in these college series, having to save those 6 outs in a run roll, I think that that's going to really, really impress. And again, Christian Moore's home runs were like 500 feet. I know everybody was saying that Lindsey Nelson's a small park. They were like clearing the stadium itself. Like those would have been out at 99% of the stadiums in the country.
Yeah, I believe that they were both, I think it was 434 and 420 something, but they were both crushed. They were hammered. But it's a big win for Tennessee. And yes, I agree that is a top 5 offense right now in the country. And that Tennessee team just, again, weirdly quiet and continuing to produce.
But Mark, I think before we move on, I
Okay.
think can Tennessee do it again? They did it last weekend on Friday against Alabama, and everybody kind of was like, oh, like Tennessee's got the series. But how can they handle it on a Saturday? How can they handle it on a Sunday when they're at the top and people are kind of looking at them? I think will really kind of tell how we feel about this Tennessee going forward because we've seen what
Here's
they
how
can
they
do on
handle
Friday
it.
night.
Here's how they handle it. They're at home against Ole Miss. There it is. They're at
Hey,
home against Ole Miss. It's a get right time.
Ole Miss is pesky. Ole Miss is pesky.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna just flush that down the toilet. Arkansas and Auburn they played 2 games already. They won the Thursday night game 1-0 at Auburn, and then they won last night 6-5. Monty, I know you had an eye on this one, and you were really excited about this one. I think all of us were excited about this one to see how this game's would punch out. Auburn's lost 2 by 2 total runs, and it's been really great.
Yeah, I don't think we need to talk too much about Thursday night's game. It was just the Hagen Smith show, right? That's all there is to say. Hagen Smith, 1-0 win. Auburn couldn't get the bats going. And so we don't really have to spend too much time talking about Hagen Smith and Thursday night. We'll move on to last night. Auburn's got to come away really disappointed with the way that game came out. They had a lot of opportunities. Arkansas gave them a lot of opportunities, and yet Auburn couldn't quite capitalize. I think they had 2 guys thrown out at the plate. Obviously, you give up the 9th inning home run to the freshman, and that's got to hurt. But if you're an Arkansas fan, you got to be really, really psyched about how your team played kind of ugly and still won.
Yeah, absolutely. And, not the best, but that's kind of how they've been performing all year. It's like they've been playing not great and they win. And that's how you have to do it, though. If you're a great team, you win your ugly games, and Arkansas continues to do so. So they're going to continue to be at the number 1. Jake, I know this says a lot about Arkansas's pitching staff, but this Auburn team is not bad. And to go into Auburn and win 2 already, that's big for Arkansas.
And that's an 0-5 now Auburn team. And
I
they
know.
were very, very determined. They out-hit Arkansas. Didn't matter. Arkansas was K'd 11 times. Didn't matter. I feel like we said this a lot last year with this Arkansas team where it's like, yeah, they can clean up this. They can clean up this. They can clean up this. But at the end of the day, they're 5-0 in the SEC, which is
Yeah.
a really, really challenging thing to do. Ryder Helfrich, again, pinch well, actually he had a defensive replacement because Souza came in pinch hit, but he's kind of been that third catcher as Hudson White DH'd. I mean, they just get it from everybody. It seems like everybody at Arkansas just has like that kind of clutch gene early in the year. They did it without kind of a DVH magic as he was away dealing with the personal matter. I want to say it was like he had like crane kids born or something like that is what I read.
Triplets.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, and then again, here's the craziest part about Arkansas. They have Hudson White going, or Mason Molina going today. Like they have another Friday night guy that they can roll out there. It's just an embarrassment of riches that Arkansas gets from the staff. And again, I think Peyton Stovall's kind of relaxed everybody around him. I think Aloy's taking better at bats. Souza's taking better at bats with him in the lineup. And again, this is a very, very dangerous team going forward that I don't want to see at any point in the season.
Well, and Tiger had his first start of the season. I mean, I think he walked 5 guys, and he was chased, I think, in the 4th inning. And so if you're an Auburn fan, you got to be really excited in that moment that you've chased out Brady Tiger, who's been absolutely sensational all year. And then you're not able to capitalize again. So it's really frustrating because I believe this Auburn team is a good team. It's just they've run into.
They can hit. They can hit with is it McMurray? And Ike Irish?
McMurray and Ike Irish. Cooper Weiss was electric last night, getting on base and stealing bases left and right. But at the end of the day, they've run into the buzzsaw that is Vanderbilt and Arkansas to start off SEC play.
I do want to clarify that I know who Cooper McMurray is. I just get him confused with Justin Murray at Houston, and I wanted to make sure I got it right.
Listen, we know that this Auburn team can hit. We know that the offense is there. I think that they'll be fine. It just sucks the way that they've had to start this SEC series against 2 top 10, top 5 in a lot of polls, 2 teams there. Georgia Tech 4, UNC 5. Monty, the offense was enough for UNC to win at home. Good enough pitching performance. This Georgia Tech team has a lot of offense, but they've been so up and down.
Yeah, I think you've got to be a little disappointed if you're Georgia Tech because you got a decent, you kept it to 5 runs, but then you couldn't get the offense going. Drew Burris led off the game with a home run again.
Yep.
Casey Cook and Alberto Osuna remained really, really hot for the Tar Heels, and they were the offense basically yesterday for North Carolina. Osuna had a 2-run double, and Casey Cook had the late insurance home run to make it 5-2, I believe, and it ended up being 5-4. But it was, Folger Boaz is still working through that, and then the bullpen. Dalton Pence and Mathis are looking pretty good, although Pence did give up those 2 runs late in the game. But UNC pitching still holding together despite relying on a ton of freshmen. And then they're doing just enough offensively. Just to be clear, Vance Honeycutt did not homer yesterday, Jake.
Just here's the thing. That bullpen and the starting staff and everybody for UNC, they feel like they're put together with bubble gum and popsicle sticks, but they keep getting outs. They keep going out there and competing.
Just win, baby.
That's all you have to do. And if you win home series, you put yourself in a very good spot. Jake, I know we talk a lot about both these teams and how we want them to be better and we want to see more. But UNC did what it's supposed to do. They got outs. They got enough win. They got enough runs. I wouldn't have thought 5 would be enough against this Georgia Tech offense.
Yeah, I mean, they made somebody not named Drew Burress have to beat them. He had another home run, so he's up to 14. And again, this feels weird saying in March 23rd, but 26 is the Georgia Tech record. He's fastly approaching that. Folger Boaz, I think I came away really, really impressed with. It was very obvious early that he didn't have his best stuff. He grinded through a Georgia Tech lineup that really looked determined to win. This is a game that I think was almost like a junior or a senior level outing for him. I mean, he grinded through 4 innings, had 7 hits, just the 2 runs on 91 pitches. That's going to be one where you kind of grow up a little bit as a freshman, and I think that that's going to pay dividends down the road for UNC. Again, honestly, when I was watching this game, I almost forgot North Carolina won the game because I was kind of half paying attention because it was at 11. Georgia Tech got out on them early, and then they had the 2 home runs late. You just kind of blink, and it's like, oh, I guess North Carolina's winning the game. Like Georgia Tech. That's like how I think North Carolina has to win going forward.
Well, and that's what got me with the tweet last night is I had watched this whole game, and when I saw that it said Vance Honeycutt home run, I was like, wait, did he? I was because at that point at this point it had been 5 hours. I was like, wait, did he?
They're the most forgettable top 25 team that Vance Honeycutt's a projected top pick. Folger Boaz is in that freshman pitcher of the year conversation, but they're just the most forgettable team. I had
to go check. I was like, I'm pretty sure he didn't.
They steal no headlines. They're like, oh yeah, they won 5-4. Folger Boaz.
There's something to be said though, going out there and winning those games, especially when it's quiet like that, and you go do it. I mean, getting that done, that's a big thing for UNC, especially at home. Speaking of a team who didn't win at home yesterday, Jake, and I know this hurts you, Mississippi State and A&M have played twice already. A&M took the first one 6-3, and then Mississippi State comes out and wins 5-1 last night. Those bats from A&M just could not get anything going. Jake, A&M wants to be a top 10 team. I feel like they are just missing out. They just keep missing these opportunities to really put teams away.
Yeah, I do want to say that Coach Schlossnagle has only swept one person his entire time at Texas A&M, and it was the second to last series in Mississippi State's hangover year where they had already kind of folded the tent and went home. So I think that this is just kind of how A&M wins. They get in these Sunday series. They kind of save the bullpen. They're going to get Evan Ashton back, who's going to go 3-4 innings as kind of that 4th starter. If they can get a good outing there from their start, I think they'll be in good shape. But again, I think that the state adjustments really what kind of stood out to me. I mean, Moonshine moves from second to short. Amani Larry moves from the DH to second base. I think that that's kind of their best lineup going forward, which again, I know that he doesn't have the range of like a normal shortstop, but I think that they need the bat in the order there from a DH spot. And again, Hunter Hines just continues to press. He had a backside home run on Thursday night. He hit one to the railroad tracks last night. He kind of seems to be the one that's stealing the headlines, as I know him and Braden Montgomery were both high school teammates back at Madison Central. So, and this is their first time playing again. Braden went over, and Hunter Hines has now had home runs in back-to-back games. The top of the order for A&M that I think that they kind of really lean on, they went 2 for 15. Braden had just 1 walk. Jace Lavalette went over, and they really They didn't have that one big inning that we've almost kind of come to expect from Texas A&M, where they throw that haymaker. But again, I think that this is kind of what we've seen from Texas A&M going forward is outside of one big inning, they really kind of get complacent and take very bats, and you blink and it's like, oh, pitcher's going back out there. So I think that that's what A&M really needs to do going forward, is they need to learn how to not score outside of just one big inning.
Yeah, and I know we've talked about it before, Jake, and it feels like this offense just sometimes disappears. They just ghost themselves in games, and it just is frustrating when you look at how good they hit in certain innings, but they don't ever put it together for a whole game, it feels like, and
Yeah.
it just has not been there. They got
They
to
throw
figure out some more
like one big
consistency.
haymaker, and then they're like, all right, I'm done.
That's enough. They're the Mike Tyson. All right. DBU at Sam Houston. Jake, I'm gonna let you do this whole one, but DBU 3, Sam Houston 1. Really good performance. DBU just continues to impress. That they are putting themselves in this conversation of being a host team.
They're putting themselves, I think, in a conversation to be a top 8 team. And I'll go ahead and get this stuff out of the way first before I get to my very, very controversial take. Walker Yannick has a 27-game hitting streak dating back to last year. He's kind of in that late first, early second round. He took a few very, very professional at-bats. It took him he was 0 for 2 with a walk there in the bottom of the ninth with 2 outs, and Caleb Cotton hit a double, and then Walker kind of banged him in the next at-bat. But Ryan Johnson, and I've seen Hagen Smith's 15 strikeout performance. I saw what Ryan Prager did against Rhode Island. I saw Luke Holman against Texas. I think that this was the most impressive pitching outing that I have seen this season. Complete game shutout, 15 Ks. He retired 16 straight. He made adjustments. His slider had 22-foot break. His fastball peaked at 98
22
miles
foot
an
break
hour.
or 22-inch break?
22-inch break, sorry.
22
Thanks
foot
for
break would
clarifying.
be very
Yeah.
impressive.
22-inch break. And I think the most impressive part that is pitch number 100, topped at 94.8, low and away on a lefty. Just an unreal pitch to make in any time in the game. And he seemed to kind of progress and get better. And I think the fact that he threw 110 pitches and it felt like he could have thrown 20 more was what made this the most impressive outing for me.
It's great for DBU. They didn't use any bullpen, so now they get to go
Yes.
into the rest of the weekend against Sam Houston, a
And
team
they
can
get a
hit.
lefty version of him tonight. Like that's the
Yeah.
even crazier part.
Yeah.
And they have a Pettit going on Sunday.
As much as I don't want to keep putting this team in my top 10, they're right. I mean, they're there. That's what this team has done. They've proven that they go out, they win the midweek games that they're supposed to win, take care of a team like Sam Houston that's very good at home. I'm impressed by this DBU team. I'd like to see the rest of this week, and I'm excited. That's, breaking into that segment. I'm excited to see the rest of that. I'm going to rattle off some scores here, some games that went through. ECU 2, UTSA 4. Bad loss for ECU on the road, but they got to figure out how to win some of these road series. Arizona State 7 at Washington State. Washington State wins 8-7. Unreal win there for Washington State. Baylor 4, Texas 3. Texas, the hangover continues from their Texas Tech series. Now they've lost a Big 12 game at home against a not a very good Baylor team. Arizona 1 at Oregon 2. Great start from RJ Gordon. Oregon gets the win 2-1 at home. Another one that might surprise some of you folks, but if you watch the Best Coast Pod, we talked about this. UCSB 3 at Cal Poly 8. Cal Poly has been playing really good baseball, and at home the Mustangs are tough. A game that shocked me is USC 15 at UCLA 2. It almost feels like UCLA has folded this season. It just is embarrassing at this point. They struggled with Washington State last week, and they did win 2 of the games, but they just don't feel like themselves. And USC, a team that has been struggling offensively, goes in and puts 15 on your Friday night guy. Tough for UCLA. Campbell also lost 10-8 to Delaware, and Virginia put a thumping on Pitt. I know that hurts Monty right now, but Virginia 18, Pitt 2. All right, who did something cool? Monty, I'll let you start since I just trashed your Pitt team. I'm sorry.
I forgot to think of something for this, but I'll go with our colleague Micah, who is doing the ACC ballpark tour.
Yeah.
He was in Pittsburgh yesterday. Today he's debating whether to go back to Pittsburgh or whether he should try to go to Penn State. He's trying to hit as many ballparks as he can. I believe he's already been to 6 of the 14 ACC ballparks. He's ranking food, particularly hot dogs. I believe Pitt got the lowest score yesterday because of the price of their hot dog. I think was $6, and so it had sat for a hot second. So I think Micah and what he's doing to try and bring some attention to the ACC and how fun it is to go to different ballparks. I think that's a really cool thing. So that's what I'm gonna touch on.
I love it. And we're eating hot dogs, man. I might have to join the ACC club next year. Jake, what is your something
Hey,
cool?
we need somebody to cover Stanford and Cal. So
Jake, what's your something cool?
I'm going to go for a game that we haven't talked about. I'm going to go Ryan Scott out at UIW. Quietly has, before yesterday, had the highest batting average in the country. He went 1 for 4. Has an asterisk 17-game hitting streak. As there was one game where he went and pinch hit and got out. I don't think that should count for stats going forward. I think it has to be in games started. So I'm going to give him an asterisk 17-game hitting streak. I think the most impressive part for me is he's a JUCO bandit, and this is his first time really in Power 5 or D1 baseball. So the fact that he is just on an absolute tear, hitting over 500, where a lot of people in his recruiting cycle said that he was just an afterthought, needed to grow as a player. Anytime you can kind of stick it to him, I always got to give props to those people.
Fair enough. Mine's going to feel pretty homer, but Trav Bazana has now started off 3 consecutive games with a home run there for the Beavers. When he comes up to bat and starts the game off, and they haven't, it's been very impressive to see him hit. He's hitting 480. He has 11 home runs. He just broke the run record for Oregon State for the career. He's going to break the hit record. He's going for the career or the single season home run record this year. There's not enough things I can say about Trav. But Travis Bazana.
And yet you're going to try.
I'm going to try. I try.
I feel like he's getting better. Like, I know that's weird to say because a lot of people have him 1-1, but I feel like he's just even like impressing even more.
Yeah, it is. And his defense has gotten better too. So it's just really good. Producer's pick. Noah decides he's going to go with Kansas. Collier Cranford hitting for the cycle in order. Very impressive.
That's
Single,
such a
double, triple,
homer.
and home run.
No, what's bad is I watched that game and I should have thought of that. So
you were talking about watching that game, Monty.
Yeah, and I was blaming Noah for watching freaking Kansas.
Oh, who did not impress this weekend or this week? You can take the whole week into effect, Jake.
All right, I'm going to go with 2. My first one is the sad state of Tulane and Rice's baseball programs. They played on a Friday night. It is the lowest ticket in town. 20 years ago, this would have been a marquee series around the country that everybody would have tuned into. Yeah. And no one cares about it, and for good reason. It's 2 bad baseball teams, 2 bad baseball programs, 2 teams that like to just sit in the corner and complain about how baseball has changed. It's almost fitting, Monty, that Rendon's an alumni of Rice. But the one that really impressed me outside of that is Texas. I mean, they surrendered 11 hits to a Baylor team that I saw Sunday that I don't know how they got 11 hits. They have a lot of guys who are hitting down in the 220s. Texas, from 5 down, they went 1 for 21. They just compounded bat at bat after bat at bat after bat at bat. And you blink and they lose to a Baylor team that honestly has no business even being in the same conference as Texas. This is an embarrassing. I feel like loss. Just when you think that Texas can't get any lower, they do this. Like, I felt like last week against Washington was an embarrassing loss. This is almost inexcusable. And I know that that's weird to say with what David Pierce has done at Texas, but there is not a single ounce of me that believes that Baylor should be on the same field at Texas ever, and yet they drop a Friday night game.
So here's my thing. I feel like Texas does this to us every year where they have this weird midseason lull almost at the start of, like, they win the first series of Big 12, and then they just have this weird midseason lull where the offense disappears and the pitching doesn't get the outs they're supposed to. It did not impress me this week. I'm with you and with the Washington series. That they stole the Sunday game because of time restraints, but it really didn't feel like they were impressive at all. Monty, who didn't impress for you?
Miami.
Yeah, Miami on the road.
But it's funny that I say that, but I was expecting it. They're my upset pick, but I think when I look around the country, it's probably Miami, and maybe who didn't impress me was also Iowa and Indiana, who both started, I believe, have started 0-2 or
they're 0-3. Yeah,
both of them.
I think
are
Indiana's lost 2. They're
yes.
22-22 and 0-3 in conference.
Yeah, so those two teams are, some of us picked them to get to super regionals or to Omaha, and now it's like I don't even know if either of them can make the tournament if another Big Ten team like Maryland,
Maryland.
I don't know how
There's
Penn
one
State
other. There's one other, Mark.
is
We'll
it Penn
get to it,
State?
and we'll get to it in a second, Monty.
Okay, all right, but yeah, there's a risk they might not even make the tournament. So you've got to start being worried about that because you went in with Iowa, especially with that three-headed monster, the pitching staff, but only Brody Brecht has been really pitching well. So,
Yeah.
Noah has alerted me to the team I'm missing that I'll let.
I guess there goes Mark.
Yeah, Mark's out.
Monty, I guess we'll move on to the. Noah's replaced him. Noah, who didn't impress you this weekend?
Yeah, just the production of the show, kind of just not where it should be. I don't know what really happened to Mark. He's back. I'm
Sorry.
I thought Noah just
was going
Mark.
crazy, and I was trying to clear it, and I clicked on one, and it went back to something AJ was saying. AJ, you're not on the show. You stop tweeting at me.
AJ just woke up. He's delirious from medication.
So, did you finish off your who didn't impress?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good with Indiana and Iowa, and then Miami.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna go UCLA to put up 2 runs and give up 15 on your Friday against your in-state rival, a team you want to hate to beat in the same city as you. And that's the performance you're putting up on a Friday when you have a top recruiting class and you can't seem to put it together. UCLA is just a mess right now, and they're getting ready to join the Big Ten, which might be, sad for Big Ten folks now that they keep looking at these two teams going, this is what we're getting out of these. It's not great. It's not good baseball. UCLA has got to figure it out. They got to put the brakes on and figure something out, but otherwise, they're going to be looking for answers outside of baseball because this is just embarrassing for UCLA at this point.
Mark, I want to read a tweet that I just saw from Occupy about the Texas woes. It says, "If we lose today, I'm never wearing jorts again in my life. Time to draw a line in the sand. Biggest Saturday of my life. Maybe. Chin emoji, scissors emoji, horns up, baseball, beer emoji." So it's must win for
Occupy
Texas.
Left field. We love
if
them.
This doesn't work, just go ahead and cancel the rest of the season.
Who looked the best, Jake? I'm gonna let you go right now after we're talking about jorts.
Nebraska. They're 15-3 since opening day. They're coming off a sweep of a very, very talented Nicholls State that some casuals picked as an upset last week. New Mexico State is a team that can really, really hit. I mean, yes, that they have the pitching woes that they have, but again, only 2 hits on the game. It was 14-0 in the ninth. They took it to a New Mexico's team that has the talent, I think, to hit their way into some of these games and make it at least interesting. And the Nebraska pitching staff just kind of delivered. And like I said, with Indiana and Iowa kind of sliding out of the Big Ten race, I think Nebraska and Penn State are kind of the ones that are moving in. We knew Maryland, we knew Rutgers, but Penn State and Nebraska are both kind of moving into that kind of Indiana-Iowa territory that we had them in.
That's fair enough. Monty.
I'm gonna go with Arkansas.
Okay.
They weren't particularly impressive on last night. I mean, obviously with Hagen Smith Thursday night, they were pretty good. But last night they looked the best when you have that pitching staff. But then when you're finding ways to win ugly, like they did last night when they should have lost, if Auburn takes advantage of certain things, like we said earlier, that's the sign of a great team. So for me, Arkansas is looking like the number 1 team in the country, and they should remain that way, having already won this series. So regardless of what happens today, they should remain number 1. They have looked, to me, the best team in the country.
Yeah, and winning road games, it just keeps you there. So even if they happen to not win today at Auburn, I would still have them as my number 1 team because taking a series on the road against another top 25 opponent is always a good win. For me, I'm fair. So if I'm going to say I'm attacking a team because I didn't think they played very well this season, I didn't think they've been very good, it's LSU. They came out, they took care of business, they beat Florida at home. I will give props when they're due, and I feel like they're due, and I feel like this team, like Jake said, even with Tommy White not getting a hit yesterday, they go out there and they find a way to win. Holman's been terrific on Fridays. That change that they've made from Thatcher Hurd has made a world of difference for this team. I'll give props when they're due, and they are due to LSU. As much as it pains me to say it this week, they impressed me the most. They did, and they looked the best yesterday. All right, let's see here. Producer's pick: Peyton Tolley going. Yep, that. I mean, it was great.
Who's Peyton Tolley?
Peyton.
That
Well,
was
he did,
that
yeah.
was clearly a Jake. No,
Yeah.
that was Noah. That was Noah.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah. No, he fixed it. Saving face. Roly Tolley. Which
So,
he has, I think, the best Twitter name I've ever seen. It's Roly Tolley.
all right, here it is, folks. So I think are we going to post our picks for the 5 series? Are we going to post that later after the show? Because I don't think we have a graphic currently, correct?
No, I think we're gonna go off the honor system again.
Honor system again. Okay, so we're going to start here. We got just a few minutes here left. Arkansas at Auburn was our first series. I took Arkansas. Monty, who'd you go with on this one?
I think I might have gone Auburn. I'd have to look. Let me just double check.
Okay, Jake, who'd you go with?
Arkansas.
I took Arkansas. I felt like Arkansas is the better team. I liked Auburn at home, but I believe that Arkansas is just a better team right now, and I think that they're just taking care of business. And when you have a guy like Hagen Smith going out there for you on Fridays, it's just elite arm against a very good team, but elite arm.
Monty, you had the Hogs.
I did. Yep. I've just looked it up. I did have the Hogs. I know there was, I wanted to take Auburn. So that's why I made sure I went back and checked, because I waffled on most of these series. So that's why.
There's a reason I pick these series every week, because there's
so that's why that graphic's so important. Yeah. Because also, I don't know, just to remember on that graphic when we get to it, there was one where I put my picks in and I switched one of them later in the week when I did my ACC picks. So
yes, you did. We'll get to that one as well.
You didn't pick both sides, Monty?
Nope, I fixed it. I prevented that from happening.
At Oklahoma State. I took TCU. I don't know how I necessarily feel about that first one there. It's a good win, but I felt like this was do or die time, so that's why I took TCU. Monty, who'd you go with in that TCU Oklahoma?
I also went with TCU. I was like, again, I was thinking back to how they've played before they got into conference play, and I was like, they're going to come back and they're going to show us that. And they didn't quite show us that, but they got the win.
Yeah.
They got the win, so I'll take it. So now they only got to win one more to make me look good.
Fair enough. Jake, you went Horned Frogs, I believe.
Yeah, TCU. I think Peyton Chatnier carries this Frogs team. I really liked what I saw from Sam Garcia from Oklahoma State. It really is kind of such a shame that they kind of wasted a start from him. But again, TCU, they took the Lepton Magic on the road this week.
Yeah, and it's a good win. Peyton Tolley was great, and that's the whole headline. Like, he was the headline. He took care of business there. Florida at LSU. I took the Gators, and it wasn't necessarily to be a hater. I just really thought that LSU was going to drop this series, and they proved me wrong. LSU looked good on the first game. I mean, there's still 2 more games to go, but I took the Gators. I thought that offense would get rolling here. Jake, who'd you go with on this one?
LSU. It's tough to win games at the box, regardless of how LSU is playing. I thought Holman was going to give them a good Friday night start, so I felt really good about them winning one of the next 2. And I think that this is one that LSU really kind of needed going forward, just from a confidence standpoint. I don't think it's a do or die like Oklahoma State TCU is, but just from a confidence standpoint, I think Jay needs to see something from the bullpen going forward, and he got it on Friday night.
And they got tough series coming up. I mean, every series is tough in the SEC, but their next 4 are all against ranked opponents, which is really difficult. Monty, did you go Florida or LSU on this one?
So I waffled on this one, but I did go LSU. And the reason for that is Holman on Friday night, and then the fact that it's in Baton Rouge. Those 2 factors, because I was like, I think they're going to probably win Friday night, and the fact they're at home, I think they're going to win one of the other 2 games because it's the home environment. Florida's leaving the state for the first time, so I went LSU, and I'm feeling pretty good about it this morning.
FSU at Clemson. We have not seen a game here yet versus Mother Nature. Yes, we're hoping that they get in. All 3 of these games are going to try to play a doubleheader today. I took Clemson. I think that the offense at home is enough but I wouldn't surprise me. This Florida State team's really good. Monty, who'd you go with in this Florida State Clemson? I know this is a series that you were back and forth on.
Yep. So on Tuesday or whatever, I think when I first submitted my picks to this, I went Clemson, and then on Thursday we did our ACC picks, and I realized I went Florida State there. So to avoid a Jake situation where you try to play both sides, I came back to change my pick here. I am sticking with Florida State, and obviously on the show here because they haven't played, I'm not at risk of having changed anything.
You're clear.
So,
you're in the clear.
Yep. So
Absolutely.
I'm going Florida State. I think again it's just a case of the ACC. Clemson's the hot team this week, and I think Florida State is gonna win, and then Florida State will be the hot team next week, whoever they play, because the week before it was Duke, and then it was Wake Forest before that, and now it's just the case of the ACC being so close in talent levels, and then just be able to beat each other up. I think that's going to play a factor. I'm really excited to watch both games today with Cam Leiter and Jamie Arnold pitching, as I talked about earlier. And that Florida State lineup is beautiful. Yeah. James Tibbs, Cam Smith, I'm really excited to watch them face up the Clemson pitching staff.
Jake, who'd you go with?
I went with Clemson just because I think that I really liked Monty's analogy of them kind of passing the baton, but I think that Florida State, kind of like I did with A&M, I think they're eventually just a law of averages going to lose one of these games. And I feel really good about them going 1-1. They have one of the deepest lineups in the country. So I think going forward, obviously that they're at home, that's going to play a big factor, as well as, the hill out there. It's kind of difficult if you haven't seen it all season. So I really, really like Clemson in this series.
Fair enough. In our last series was Utah at Cal. Both these teams are 10-win teams already. Utah starts off with a big win there. I took Cal at home. I thought the home team wins this one. Utah showed me something. Jake, where'd you go with this one?
I really wish I would have paid better attention to the pack, because I would have liked to have gone with Utah. Hindsight's always 2020. But I went with Cal. I thought that honestly, I didn't really think twice about it. I was a little bit confused why Mark put this game in there. I was like, I guess he's trying to give us like a stat pad so our win totals look better. And the Utes really showed me. So I came away really, really impressed with Utah. Hopefully going forward that this is kind of not just a fluke that the pack's down. I think that they can kind of get rolling here.
If only we had a West Coast show that would tell you all the things you need to know about that in 40 minutes or less.
Y'all screwed me up on the Portland stuff.
If you didn't call it Best Coast, when I see Best Coast, I assume you meant East Coast.
Monty, who'd you go with here in this one?
So,
I know that you've already taken Utah as an upset pick, and they almost did it last weekend for you.
And I should have thought about that. You know what I mean? Like, they played really well against Oregon State.
Yes, they did.
And I should have thought about that, but I was like, I was feeling a little bit of something like, oh man, they came close, but they didn't get the upset to spite me. So I was like, I'm gonna spite them by picking Cal, and Utah is just
personally.
Yeah, Utah, they're taking it personally, and they're gonna beat Cal because I chose against them this week. So
I love it.
Yeah, so I went Cal, and I'm not feeling great about it.
So I believe that Monty and I have already shared our underdog picks. I had Georgia at home against Alabama. Monty, who'd you have again?
Notre Dame over Miami.
And they've done that. Jake, who was your upset pick?
It was Sam over DBU, and I don't feel very good about it because I thought that they would
DBU takes care of that first.
I thought they were going to have to do it on Friday and Saturday, and I don't feel good about Sam Houston on Sunday.
Yeah, and we'll share all those other picks with you guys when we get the graphic up after the show some point here. Final thoughts, Jake. I'm gonna let you start, just because I feel like after being at that Sam Houston DBU game and then being your upset there, you got a lot to say.
I am excited for the talented baseball that is within driving distance of my house this weekend. Texas A&M, Mississippi State. I get to go see Durangelo switch pitching. Sam DBU is a very, very underrated series. Houston is hosting Kansas State. I feel very fortunate to live where I do, that I can just drive and go to see these games. So I really want to pat myself on the back there.
Fair enough.
Nobody else is going to pat you on the back, Jake.
Not for living in Texas. Read the room.
Read the room.
Monty, how are we feeling? How are we going into the rest of this weekend with final thoughts, buddy?
I'm really excited about all the games I'm going to get to watch today. Again, I'm set up in my command center with 5 screens. I'll have March Madness on one, and then I'll have baseball on the others, and it's just a sports overload. I know one of my friends was trying to figure out how we because I know some of you guys also set up these multi-screen things. They were kind of stunned on how we do that, and I'm like, you got to train yourself, man. Some of us have grit, and some of us don't.
You need to not have a woman or draw a line in the sand with your woman,
Hey,
I think, for that to happen.
My wife put up the 2 TVs in my living room that are up there, so I have the multiple TVs and the multiple screens. That was all her doing.
Did Jake just single shame me? Like
Noah, I single shame Noah and Monty that they
wow. I'm telling you right now, though, my wife is the one who was like, "Hey, we're putting up that big TV here on the one wall, and then we're going to put up your little TV on the other wall, and we're going to be set." I mean, little.
Yeah, Mark's wife said it was okay for me to do this.
100%. She's like, I give a pass for Monty and Noah. They can have as many screens up as they want. Listen, I'm excited for the rest of the weekend. I think that this is a great weekend in college baseball. We're just getting into some more of this. When college basketball finally ends. When college basketball finally ends, we'll be really excited because we'll be having all the attention on college baseball like it should be all the time.
Yep.
Thanks for joining us again on the weekend rotation. We're here every Saturday morning. Come join us live. Throw your questions at us. We'd love to have any questions from the fans. We read and react to everything you guys send us on Twitter. Go after us. Talk to us. Let us know what's going on. We appreciate it. For Jake McKeever, Monty Taylor, and myself, Mark